if you're not familiar with this, this is a kid's cartoon called Leo and Layla, and it's by PragerU, so it's going to propagandize to children. Like, that's the goal of it. I wanted to listen to some of it. This one is about Ronald Reagan, obviously. It's wild. It's about Reagan ending communism. So let's give this a listen. Just check this clip out here.
I wasn't even born yet, and now I'll never get to meet him.
Geez, Leo, don't be so dramatic. Just use my new time travel app to go meet him.
Really? Awesome.
You just tap here and away we go. But let me get the settings right before you do that.
Ronald Reagan, here I come.
She yelled, "Oh no." I guess she didn't have time to get her settings right. It's the Berlin Wall, I believe.
Wow, is this what West Berlin looks like? Layla, look at that.
Yeah, the United States could only beat Germany in World War II because we got Russia's help coming in from the Eastern Front. But Russia was communist at the time, very communist, and America was not communist. America was more like Germany in that communism was like the root of all evil. But we worked with the communists to take down the Nazi Empire, and it was successful. But Stalin and the people after him were dead set on maintaining their control over Berlin, over Germany. They wanted Germany, so they built a wall down the center, the Berlin Wall. Reagan was president when the Berlin Wall came down. He was part of the equation in convincing, the hell's his name? Gorbachev. Oh my God, yes. Gorbachev. Could not remember the name. Gorbachev was the leader of Russia at the time, of the USSR. A lot of factors came into his decision to collapse communism, basically collapse the Berlin Wall and everything. But one of the decisions, or one of the factors that factored into his decision to make that happen was Pepsi, as a matter of fact. I believe it was Pepsi, or was it Coke? Somebody brought him a soft drink, and he loved it so much. He said, "Capitalism can't be that bad. They have great drinks like this." It was so stupid. Anyway, whatever. You know what? Whatever it takes to kind of collapse an authoritarian regime, I'm down. If it's Pepsi, then okay. So yeah, I guess you're going to talk about like the Berlin Wall falling now. All right.
That wall, it's huge. Hey, wait, where's Layla?
What the heck? Where am I? Oh, great. Thanks, Leo. I better go find him.
I can't believe I actually went back in time.
Reagan famously said something like, "Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." Or I don't remember the exact term, but I'm sure they're about to bring that up.
Maybe I'll really get to meet Ronald Reagan.
Did someone say my name?
Wow, you're really President Reagan. Nice to meet you. I'm
Like, conservatives worship this dude to a weird degree.
Leo, and I came here from the future. What are you doing here?
Nice to meet you, Leo. I'm here in Berlin to stop the communists and end the Cold War.
Oh, man. All this talk about communists is making me hungry.
Well,
yeah, so after Germany fell to the Americans and to the USSR, the Russians on the west and the east, Stalin kind of declared war on the US, but a little bit of context from before that. In 1917, October 1917, there was a communist revolution in Russia. It was previously run by a czar. In 1917, there's a communist revolution led by Vladimir Lenin. And when Vladimir Lenin took power in 1917, as it does with pretty much everybody, it went to his head and he couldn't let it go. So he cracks down in an authoritarian way to take control of everything, and he starts punishing his political opponents. And for the record, communist Russia was worse than Nazi Germany. More people died. Political opponents were attacked at a higher rate. I don't know why we focus so much on Nazi Germany rather than communist Russia. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so 1917, Lenin takes control. I think in 1922 or somewhere in there, he died at like 52 years old. Don't quote me on those exact numbers, but it was something really stupid that killed him. Let me look it up. Like something really questionable. Like, did this really kill this guy? What was it? He died at age 53 after falling into a coma. The official cause of death was recorded as incurable disease of the blood vessels. Like, what the hell is that? Okay, it's not as stupid as I thought it was, but I don't know what that is. incurable disease of the blood vessels. He dies. Stalin takes over, which is like his main man, his buddy, and he kind of implements Stalinism. And it was like a mix of authoritarianism and communism, and it was just ugly. It was bad. Anyway, Germany comes at Russia. They came at them in World War I, too, or they planned to take Russia in World War I. Didn't end up working, obviously. And then in World War II, Hitler drew up plans to come at Russia and take it. And I think he came at Stalingrad. Yeah, it was Stalingrad at the time. Stalingrad was one of the most decisive battles on the Eastern Front in the Second World War. And it was it says here, the Soviet Union inflicted a catastrophic defeat on the German army in and around this strategically important city on the Volga River, which bore the name the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin. Anyway, Stalin was not a good strategist, military strategist. His strategy was keep throwing people at it until it solves itself. We've got like 100 million people here. Let's just keep doing it. And that ended up resulting in, how many people died? 27 million deaths in Russia. 27 million people died in Russia. Holy shit. That's like 5 times bigger than the entire world's military population today. Oh my God. Guy just kept throwing people at the problem. Anyway, it was a decisive battle, and Russia won. Relations between the U.S. and the Soviet Union just crumbled, and it turned into this gigantic thing where they hated each other, and there was like a Cold War. There's a war technically, but there was no like bomb dropped, no gun shot, no nothing yet. That's why it was cold. Until the Berlin Wall fell. So that's the context here if you don't know the history.
Well, Leo, communism makes everyone hungry. People living under communism are often poor, and
I think it's people living under authoritarianism. I'm capitalist, but this is just like propagandistic nonsense.
and don't have enough money for food. That's why we have to stop it.
I guess you're right, but can we have a snack first? I brought jelly beans.
Leo, thank you. That's my favorite snack.
It's too bad Layla isn't here to have some too. Hey, Mr. Reagan, can I ask you some questions?
Of course you can, Leo.
Why did they build the Berlin Wall in Germany?
That's a good question.
Oh, here we go. They're gonna lie, right?
We're in West Berlin, which is the free side of Germany. On the other side of the wall is East Berlin, which is occupied by the Soviet Union.
Like, again, it was bad, man. It was really bad. Like, I've read books about how people were treated on the east side and the west side, and camps that were liberated by Russians rather than Americans. People wrote about it, like, while it was happening. Women used to find a Russian soldier and date him because that's the only way that they could protect themselves from being taken advantage of by every other soldier in the unit, for example. If one of the soldiers in the unit was protecting the girl as his. It was so ugly, man. So ugly. Girls were like prostituting themselves for sticks of butter and things. I'm not exaggerating. That's like a real story that really happened. It was bad. My barber, his dad grew up in the Soviet Union, during the 80s, the 70s and 80s, when everything was like collapsed. This is all the result of authoritarianism, people's desire to grab power at any cost, and corruption slipping in all over the place. That's really the failure of communism, in my opinion, is not the underlying philosophy or ideas. It's that corruption slips into every system, every single system, including capitalist ones. You have to correct for that stuff. And a communist system doesn't really lend itself to correction like that. Not really in that way. It would have to be implemented differently. So my barber, his dad grew up there, and he says the only way that they survived was by having like farms. They all everybody broke into little units of like 100 people, and they grew vegetables on their rooftops and their patios and everything, or on the sidewalks, and they would all work together to like grow the plants and protect the plants and everything else, and they'd share them. Kind of a tiny communal system. The people that were further out on farmland had it much easier because it was like a lot easier to grow things and work with other farmers, you know. But there was zero support from the government for the vast majority of people. Only the top 1% of the communist world was succeeding in any way, shape, or form. It was just not good. Plus all the genocide and ethnic cleansing. Don't want to forget that one.
The Soviet Union, which is communist, built this wall during the Cold War to keep people locked in East Berlin and stop them from going to freedom in West Berlin.
Okay, whatever. I mean, this is the problem with propaganda. Not really. Like, there's so much context behind this, and making a hard, generalized statement like that is not furthering our knowledge on the subject. I guess kind of. I suppose you could say that a little bit, but whatever.
We sure are lucky to be on this side.
You're right about that, Leo.
Why is it called the Cold War anyway? It doesn't seem that cold.
It's not because of cold weather. It's called the Cold War.
Well, there's cold weather too, for what it's worth, but okay.
Because we were able to end the war without using any weapons.
A war with no shooting or bombs? How did you do that?
Well, everyone was afraid that the United States...
We did it with capitalism. In all seriousness, it was like Pepsi and stuff. There weren't really a variety of like private companies in communist Russia the way that we have in the United States. So Gorbachev famously, after the wall fell and everything, he did like Pizza Hut commercials and stuff because he loved the variety so much. It's kind of funny.
States and the Soviet Union were going to shoot nuclear bombs at each other, but thankfully that never happened.
A nuclear bomb would have been terrible. That's the biggest kind of bomb there is.
You're absolutely right, Leo. That's why we signed the INF.
Oh, I see. Wait, what's the INF?
The INF stands for Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty. Both our countries agreed to sign the treaty so we didn't have to use our bombs.
Is that all it took to...
They were certainly testing the hell out of those bombs, though. Oh my God. Russia famously had the biggest bomb, the Tsar Bomba is what it was called, and it was scary as shit. Oh my God.
end the Cold War?
Well, no, Leo. We also used our economy to win.
Economy?
Yeah, it was almost entirely the economy.
Isn't that money stuff? That sounds really complicated.
It's really very simple, Leo.
This is so stupid.
We used a program called Reaganomics to make our economy strong.
No. Reaganomics, I assume, when he says that, he's talking about trickle-down economics. Trickle-down economics at the time, it was like widely denounced by economists. And throughout all of history has always been denounced. It's like a terrible idea. It concentrates wealth in the pockets of the very rich, which if you're trying to accomplish certain goals, I suppose is a good thing, like destroying the middle class, making the rich richer and the poor poorer. I mean, that's not really a recipe for a successful economy. However, in the short term, trickle-down economics gives a big boost, like within like a few year period. It gives a massive economic boost because like a bunch of money is funneled to the top, and these people like grow the companies and then create new jobs, and then everything kind of falls flat because it's not sustained over a long period of time because all of that money is staying at the top, and the lower and middle classes have less to spend, so they're not putting it into the economy, and the money is going into a bank account of some rich person. It's just sitting there. It doesn't have velocity is what it's called. Anyway, so it creates short economic booms and then long-term depression. Republicans have been pushing for trickle-down economics ever since, just to make rich people richer. That's it. That's the only benefit. It does not help anybody except rich people. Anyway, that's not what got us out of the Cold War, Reaganomics. Actually, that made things worse. It was just capitalism, but okay.
We used a program called Reaganomics to make our economy strong. We cut taxes so that the government took less of people's hard-earned money away from them, and that led to more people getting jobs.
Really? The government cut taxes so that hard-working people would have more money? Is that what happened? Because I seem to remember the government cutting taxes for the very wealthy. which is still what they advocate for. They're not trying to cut taxes for people under $400,000 a year. I'd be all for that. They're cutting taxes for people who make above $10 million a year. It's a joke. These people are so full of shit.
Blech. I don't want a job. I hate work. My sister Layla has a job after school, but I like to play after school.
Oh boy, Reagan's gonna lay into him.
Well, Leo, when you grow up, getting a job and working hard is part of being responsible. I'm sure your sister is working hard to find you right now. Thanks to everyone working hard, the United States economy was so big that the Soviet Union couldn't keep up.
Okay, again, it was because of corruption and variety that really made it collapse. But whatever.
You are amazing, Mr. Reagan. You saved
No, he wasn't.
everyone's lives and made them better at the same
No, he didn't.
time.
Well, thank you, Leo, but the job isn't done yet. We still have one more thing to do. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's his big famous thing.
freedom for everyone.
There you are, Leo. I've been looking for you everywhere. What have you been up to?
Hi, Layla. You just missed it. President Reagan and I tore down the real Berlin Wall.
Ugh, I can't believe I missed it. You need to be careful when you time travel.
So why did they exclude Layla from this? Is it because she's a woman and she doesn't understand money stuff? Is that what it is? I don't know what's going on.
My phone battery is almost empty, and we need to get back before it's...
She's so airheaded and ditzy, forgot to charge her phone. Typical woman, right?
before it's too late.
Okay, Layla. Let me say goodbye to Ronald Reagan first, though. Bye, Mr. President. It was nice meeting you. Thanks for beating the communists.
Goodbye, Leo, and remember this. It's never too late to fight for freedom.
Oh, God, dude.
Here we go, Leo.
Just like a little bit more context here to this whole fight for freedom thing. It's so fascinating to see Republicans or just like Americans fight communism. Not because I think it shouldn't be fought, like it should. I'm not a fan of communism personally. Again, I'm a capitalist, but because they use the same strategies as the Germans did, as the Nazi Party did in the 1920s and 30s. There were three major political parties in Germany throughout the late 20s and the early 30s. In 1933, it all collapsed into Nazism. There was just one political party, the Nazi Party. Anyway, leading up to that, there were three. There was the Centrist Party, which was Catholic. Then there was the Nazi Party, which had a big boom toward the end of the 1920s, and it was like growing at a rapid pace. And then there was the Communist Party. Again, the communists were on the fringe. The Nazis were on the fringe for a long time. But communists at the time, the Communist Party, was just as violent and interested in revolution as the Nazis were. They were competitors in the region at the time. They were fighting each other tooth and nail. And the Catholic Centrist Party also hated communism because it came paired with atheism, kind of something of like a cult created around Lenin and Stalin that linked the ideologies together. Anyway, so the Catholic Church worked with the Nazis to fight communists, and they succeeded, and the Nazi Party started to kind of grow and take control, and then the Communist Party outnumbered the Catholic centrists. So now the two competing parties, the Nazi Party and the Communist Party in Germany in the early 30s, outnumbered the centrists. They outnumbered the people who wanted a democratic system. Communists wanted authoritarianism, Nazis wanted authoritarianism, and they were now over 50%. And that's when it all fell apart. So Nazis started out by partnering against communists with Catholics, and then they partnered with communists. Well, not really with communists, but then they worked against the Catholic Church. I wouldn't say that they partnered with communists ever. They fucking hated the communists. Anyway, it's fascinating to see, like, Nazi strategies is the point, to fight communism. Like, all this stuff is Nazi strategies.
Here we go, Leo.
Yay, we're back! Layla, you should have been there when Ronald Reagan told them to tear down the Berlin Wall. It was super fun.
It's okay, Leo. I got to do a lot of fun things in the past, too.
Like what?
Glad you asked, Leo. Well, I went to the White House and met...
Oh, Nancy Reagan, dude. She is, oh, God, terrible. I'm sorry, man. You know, Jimmy Carter put up, solar panels on the White House roof to signal we should be moving toward renewable energy. Nancy Reagan had them taken down because they interfered with her astrology. I'm not even joking. Oh, my God, it's so stupid. That's just like a microcosm of the Republican Party, like in a nutshell. You can see the problems here, right? Let me just verify that. I want to make sure that I'm giving accurate information here. I don't know why Reagan took the solar panels down for sure. I can't verify that, but Carter put the panels up and Reagan took the panels down, and Nancy was very into astrology, so I can't say for sure that that's why they were taken down. But since we're talking about it, I might as well mention Nancy's, like, absolute obsession with astrology. Like, it was a problem. Astrology's fake, people, by the way. I want to make sure everybody's fully aware of that. Here we go. Nancy Reagan turned to astrology in White House to protect her husband. Reagan, who died Sunday at age 94, oh, this is like 5 years old, played an outsized role as First Lady during her husband's years in the White House. She's known as his fierce protector and perhaps his closest advisor. With her astrology, oh my God, dude. His presidency was jeopardized by the Iran-Contra affair in the 80s. She took a decisive role in imposing new leadership around him. Oh yeah, I remember that, where he was selling nuclear weapons to people and giving it to Iran. No, he was selling them to Iran to fund a guerrilla group in the Contras in Central America. Is that what it was? It was like the biggest, most disgusting scandal ever. And he ordered people to shred a bunch of shit, and oh my God, it was bad. It was bad. He was bad. There's nothing good about Reagan, okay? Nothing. I don't want to hear anything about this. Nothing good about Nancy either, okay? She was a conspiracy theorist, astrologist nutcase to the very end.
Met Nancy Reagan, the First Lady, and I learned all about their program to keep kids off drugs.
Just say no.
Do you know that thing, like Nancy Reagan's anti-drug thing, made drug use increase? Seriously. Because she used things that she thought were, like, intuitive. Like, scaring the shit out of people. But you know what scare tactics do actually, like, in practice? They look absolutely ridiculous to kids. They're like, okay, that's a little far. Come on. Reel it in a little bit, Nancy. And they, it has no effect on them. They use drugs anyway. When an actual useful anti-drug policy could have been implemented, an education program, something science-based. No, we'd rather something that's like intuition-based, astrology-based, or whatever. Anyway, it drives me nuts. I can't stand it.
Glad you asked, Leo. Well, I went to the White House and met Nancy Reagan, the First Lady, and I learned all about their program to keep kids off drugs.
Just say no.
You got that right. Plus, I went to the Supreme Court and visited one of my role models, Justice Sandra Day O'Connor.
Who was that?
She was the first woman on the Supreme Court. She's
Why are they feigning, like, women's rights or an interest in human rights at all? As if PragerU gives a shit about any of that. And I'm sorry, one more thing on the just say no thing, is it just drives me nuts. My grandma used to say, just don't bend your elbow. You just have to not bend your elbow, to put, like, the drug in your mouth. Just don't, keep your elbows straight and you'll be good. That's not how it works. I'm sure I don't even need to say that. My God.
Proof that anyone can become what they want in America. And guess who appointed her?
I have no idea.
I'll give you a hint. He really likes jelly beans.
Ronald Reagan did that too?
Blech.
Man, I'm so glad I got to meet him. Hey, Layla, do you think that I could grow up to be like Reagan?
Of course you can. When Ronald Reagan was your age, his family didn't even have plumbing or running water. But you'll have to work hard if you want to be like him.
I mean, is that because he was born in like the 1800s or something? I don't know. I'm not sure. Oh, my grandma, the one who said don't bend your elbows, she was born in an area that did not have electricity, surprisingly. When she was little, born in 1944, she had to, like, wash, like, oil lamp globes every day, or they'd get too much soot on them and get, like, really dull in the house. It's crazy. It's crazy how recent all of our technology is. Although we've had plumbing for, like, 1,000 years, so.
You bet I will.
Great. Now why don't you start by fixing that fence before Mom and Dad get home?
That sounds like communism to me. Anyway, tell me what you think about these ridiculous videos in the comments. These people need help for real. Something else I noticed about this is like Leo just kind of randomly gives like really weird expressions. I don't think the animation's very good. Saber Spark is a friend of mine. He came here to New York City, met up with him, we hung out, we got gelato and all that stuff, and he did a video on Leo and Layla. I have not watched it because I didn't want to like steal ideas from him or anything, but his video might be interesting on this if you found this interesting. He critiques animation styles and stuff.
Reagan did that too? Man, I'm so glad I got to meet him. Hey, Layla, do you think that I could grow up to be like Reagan?
Of course you can. When Ronald Reagan was your age,
It's weird to me that like their lips aren't even attempting to kind of approximate what they're actually saying. Why? Is that because they're putting them in different languages? Oh, I don't know.
family didn't even have plumbing or running water. But you'll have to work hard if you...
And like, this is kind of a vacant stare. The animation just isn't good. If you want more animation critique, check out Saber Spark's video. You know another absolutely horrifically disgusting thing about Reagan, since we're talking about it? He was the president when the AIDS crisis really hit in full force. HIV was a brand new virus, just like COVID. We didn't understand it. In fact, it was even more novel than the COVID virus was. We had no idea how it worked or what it was or how to slow it down or stop it or how to treat somebody or anything. People were trying absolutely whatever it took. Unfortunately, you know what we did when COVID hit? Social distancing and mask wearing and washing our groceries as they came in, because we didn't know. We got to be careful. We don't know. We don't know how this shit works yet. And scientists start researching COVID and they say, well, we've discovered that it's airborne, so masks will help a little bit, but they won't help with this thing, and we need to do that, and social distancing isn't as important. You know, we went through all of these steps as a society to discover the most effective ways. Vaccines are important and all that. None of that shit happened for HIV. You know why? Ronald Reagan didn't give a shit because it was hurting the gay community, primarily. He didn't care. He let it all fall flat. So whatever happens, happens. If they die, maybe this is God's treatment for them being gay or whatever. God's judgment on them. For that, if no other reason, in my opinion, Reagan committed genocide. I mean, it's a loose definition of genocide where you have to just do nothing, but he was in a position of power. He's expected to do something, and he just let gay people die. It was disgusting, dude. Reagan is awful for that, if nothing else. Princess Diana, on the other hand, was taking steps to show people there's nothing to be afraid of, and she famously shook the hand of an AIDS patient with no gloves, no nothing, shook his hand and showed she's not afraid of this virus. We know that it's safe if you don't, like, exchange bodily fluids or whatever. And that did a lot for the AIDS movement to help people kind of calm down and get a grip on reality. People, communities who were disproportionately affected by it. You know what the Republicans were doing all this time while Reagan was just completely dead silent on the issue? I'll tell you what Republicans were doing. They were releasing gems like this. Homosexual diseases threaten American families, and all of the kids wearing masks, even the baby. Weird that they wear masks when they think that they can benefit from this virus by getting people killed who they don't like otherwise, huh? They didn't have a problem with masks back then. What happened? Suddenly, they're anti-maskers. They're anti-maskers now because it's a culture war issue. And getting people, like, divided into camps on an issue like this, where you have to basically do nothing to signal support for their side. That is, don't wear a mask. Do nothing at all to signal support for them. By doing that, you're making a political statement and showing support for Republicans and growing their movement and all that other stuff. That's why Republicans demonized masks so much during COVID. But when it was convenient to make people think that gay people are, like, sick and that you'll get sick if you touch them or if you're around them or whatever, when it's convenient, they wear masks all day, every day. It's so wrong. Like, I can't even express how deeply wrong and disgusting Ronald Reagan is for the things that he said and did, and the Republican Party at the time. Just disgusting.